When you think about all the different challenges an artist can take on, the human portrait, well, it's often called the toughest one out there. But there's a really good reason for that. It's also one of the most powerful and, honestly, compelling art forms that exists.
So what's the secret sauce? What is it that separates a drawing that just kind of looks like someone from a portrait that is absolutely unforgettable? That's the big question we're going to dig into today. We'll start with the techniques and go all the way to the deeper magic of what it means to capture a person's essence. All right, let's kick things off with part one, the mystery. The big question here is why faces fascinate us. And really, that's where this whole journey has to start. Why are we so completely captivated by the human face anyway?
Well, it turns out our connection to faces goes way, way deeper than you might think. This isn't just a cultural thing. It's literally baked into our biology. Faces are what bind us together. They give us that sense of belonging. They help us recognize who's in our circle. We are just hardwired to look at a face and immediately start trying to figure out what's going on behind the eyes. And that right there is why portraits are such a high-stakes game for an artist. A face is so much more than a collection of features. It's not just a symbol. In a very real way, it represents the very essence of what we consider to be human. So, knowing that, how on earth does an artist even begin to tackle such a huge task? That brings us to part two, the method. And we're going to start by training the single most important tool an artist has. And it's not their hand, it's their eye. One of the absolute best ways to train your mind, your gaze, and your hand to all work together is through quick sketching. The idea is simple. Just go out and watch people in real life, in a cafe, on a train. You could even just pause a film. And then you draw, fast. I mean, we're talking 1 to 10 minutes maximum. You are not going for perfection here. The goal is to use a quick searching line just to capture the general shapes, the main shadows, the whole feeling of the person. So we're still in part two, the method. Now, let's talk about building the portrait. Those quick sketches we just talked about, they're essential for building up your intuition. So now we're going to take that intuition and channel it into a more structured, more academic approach. This is where we build the portrait from the ground up. Now here's the absolute key. The biggest mistake you can make is jumping right in and trying to render a perfect eye or the lips. Nope, you have to start with construction. It's like building a house. You need to lay a solid foundation and put up a scaffold before you can even think about decorating. That's what this is. And that scaffold is built using these foundational axes to map out the whole face. You've got your main center line for symmetry, a line for the eyebrows, a line for the eyes, the base of the nose, and so on. These lines are your guides. They make sure everything is in the right place and in the right proportion before you commit to any heavy details. And to make this whole construction phase a little less scary, you can simplify all those complex facial forms into basic geometry. So think of the cranium as just a sphere. The nose, it's basically a pyramid with the top lopped off. The whole face can be seen as a series of flat planes that catch light and shadow. It really helps. Throughout this entire construction phase, the most crucial thing, and I can't stress this enough, is constant verification. You have to be constantly looking back and forth from your drawing to your model or photo and back again. If something feels off, you change it now, while everything is still just a light sketch. Okay, still in the method. Next up, bringing likeness to life. The structure is solid, the foundation is set. Now it's time for the really fun part. Breathing life into it with depth, detail, and character. One of the most effective ways to create that sense of 3D space on a 2D surface is by using contrast. Think of it like this. The parts of the face that are closest to you, like the tip of the nose, should have the strongest contrasts, the darkest darks right next to the lightest lights, and the sharpest details. As things recede into the background, the transitions get softer and the edges get less defined. Boom, instant depth. And hey, let's not forget the hair. It's so much more than an afterthought. There's a great quote about this that says, quote, "Hair, mustache, or beard offer much of the model's character." And it's so true. It reveals a huge amount about a person's personality. It deserves just as much care and attention as any other part of the face. So as you get close to the finish line, there are a few key areas that really need that final polish. The eyes and the gaze. Many artists save these for the very end since they hold so much of the portrait's power. The hair and facial hair, like we said, have to be treated differently than skin. And finally, you have to pay attention to the background light and shadow. How it interacts with the head is what can really make the whole portrait just pop. So, we've covered the technique, we've covered the method, but that brings us to our final and most elusive part of the journey, the magic. This is all about capturing the unseen essence. It's about moving beyond just a physical copy to get at something, well, something you can't see. A truly great portrait does so much more than just look like the person. It has to transmit something deeper. It's about capturing their inner state, their inner world. And sure, that passes through the artist's own filter, but the goal is to render it in a way that everyone who sees it can feel it. So what is this intangible something? Well, some people might call it soul. Others might call it spirit. Or maybe, most simply, you could just call it the person's essence. Look, these are big words and they're hard to define, but that's kind of the point. It's this intangible quality. And yet, when an artist gets it right, we all know it when we see it. It's something instantly recognizable the moment you look at the portrait. Which brings us right back to our central question, but with a whole new perspective. The ultimate goal isn't just about achieving a perfect likeness. The real challenge and the real magic of portraiture, it all lies in the story you choose to tell. So beyond just capturing a face, what story will you tell?